Okay, so I got my 25-year-old Fujicolor 800 Super G Plus test roll back from the lab. And, well, yeah, some of you might have guessed it. It was quite expired and it doesn't look great. I mean, it's okay considering its age, but the photographer that I picked it up from had kept it freezer stored. And even so, it's an 800 speed film that's consumer quality. So I understand that maybe it degraded a little bit faster despite even the cold storing. This is the test roll that I cut and split with my 35 millimeter film splitter, which I made a whole video on a couple weeks ago. And there were a few comments from people who didn't fully understand why you would want to split a roll of film in half. And this is exactly why. I picked up a bunch of these Fuji 800 films. I think I've got about 8 or 9 of them. And, I didn't know how to rate them. Knowing that they were expired, I knew I would have to give, with the general rule of thumb of an extra stop of light per decade that they're expired. But the photographer didn't remember exactly what year he bought them in. He just knew that he kept them in the freezer. So I looked up real quick, Fujicolor 800, I think they made until like the early 2000s. So at the very least, this is probably about 25 years old. So if we're just averaging out, that's a stop per decade. Even though it was frozen, I thought like maybe I was hoping to get away with being able to expose it at like, I don't know, 400, maybe 500 ISO, but it seems like it really, really needed a little bit more light than that. I just wanted to show you guys the negatives so you could get a sense of how they came out. What I had done was I bracketed 3 different exposures for every frame. So let's see, this one here. This was my first shot. It was just a building in a little town nearby. So I did 800, ISO 400, ISO 200. And then this was an alleyway nearby. So that was 800, 400, 200. And once again, I'll show you guys the digital scans of these as well. But it's just so you could see how the actual negatives, like how dense or thin they came out, despite the extra stops of light. So yeah, then this one too was 800, 400, 200. This very hard to see on this shot, I realize, but this is a basketball net at a local park. 800, 400, 200, and here's a close-up of that same basketball net. With this one, I was really curious to see even if I was metering for it properly, because I was shooting directly into the sun to try to catch lens flare on these. So this one was 800, 200, and 400. And even I think I still like underexposed these ones because of the fact that I was shooting straight into the sun. And then the last shot on my roll was just a close-up of a flower that I saw on my walk back home. I think I metered it at 400, but metering it for the shadows. Because for me, I was trying to be optimistic, hoping that I could shoot these entire rolls at 400. But from the scans, it's looking like 200 is maybe the sweet spot. And I would be inclined to maybe take another test roll where I meter some shots as low as 100, just out of curiosity, because I think the film does have that latitude. And you'll see in a second, I keep saying you'll see in a second, but you will see in a second, the scans that I did, they're still quite grainy even at 400 and 200. So maybe if I shoot this film at 100, I think I'll be able to clear up some of that grain. And even if I can't, I mean, the rolls were really cheap, and it's kind of just cool to be able to shoot Fujicolor 800 Super G Plus because it's the predecessor to Superia, and they don't make the stuff anymore. So I know that a lot of people will hate on shooting expired film. They don't understand why you would want to shoot expired film. For me, it just seems wasteful to not shoot it. I mean, somebody's got it in a fridge or a freezer, a closet somewhere. Like if you can get an image out of it, I think that's still pretty cool. Oh, the other thing that I like expired film for is testing out cameras. If you pick up a camera at a thrift shop, or if somebody, hands you down a camera and they say, hey, here's this camera that I have, I don't know if it still works. It's like, I'm not going to go drop a roll of Portra or, flick film Aurora 800, which is, I believe, now discontinued. I'm not going to put a rare film into a camera that I don't know if it works well or not. So to me, that's exactly where expired film is ideal. And, because at least you're not wasting anything of value. And, in this case, now I know how this film reacts to light. So I would feel totally comfortable using this to test out a new camera. It'll give me a good idea if that camera's shutter speeds are accurate. I'll know if there's light leaks or other issues. Yeah, so anyways, I'm just kind of rambling here, but let's get into the scans and I'll show you guys how these converted. Here are my scans from my home scanning setup. I scanned them in with my Canon R5C with the Canon 100mm macro. So I'll show you guys the workflow so you can see how these shots scanned in, how they converted with Negative Lab Pro, and we can follow along together to kind of see how well this roll turned out. I was in the middle of editing this video and I realized I should jump in real quick and just clarify that this is not a tutorial video. I do talk about some of the workflow and some of the things that I'm doing inside of Negative Lab Pro while I'm working. However, if you're looking for something more thorough, I highly suggest you check out Kyle McDougall and Dave Herring. Those two guys are where I learned the most about home scanning and conversion software. So I highly recommend you check out their channels. They have videos that are very thorough and they walk you through all the steps, not only about the home scanning setup itself, but also they'll go through all the little sliders and tools inside of Negative Lab Pro. And so if you stick around and watch the rest of this video, I think you'll see that I was really more focused on just trying to pull a usable image out of this expired film because it does take a few extra steps. It can take a little bit more work to get a good result from expired film, but you'll see the results I think were worth it. And yeah, I just wanted to give those two guys a shout out. So with that said, let's get back to the video. What I'm going to do is start with the 200 ISO shots because I think that these have the best chance of converting. So if you've never used a home scanning setup before, or if you've never used Negative Lab Pro before, basically what you do is what you just saw me do there. Basically, you white balance on the frame of your negative. That kind of gives it a neutral starting point. And then you want to crop out all the sprockets and leave just the image. So I like to copy the settings from my first picture and I'll just paste them onto everything else here. Those that are familiar with Lightroom will realize that what I've done is I've actually done virtual copies of all my images because I've already done this. I've messed around with the images a little bit and I just wanted to do it again with you guys so you could follow along and see what the workflow is. So basically I'll reframe some of these shots. Basically you want to crop to like just your image on its own. I've had issues with Negative Lab Pro converting images where there's a lot of sky. For some reason, it really seems to bug out when there's just a bunch of sky in the shot. I don't really have that on this roll. I tried to frame things that were pretty well balanced. I think the exception is probably these shots here with the basketball net. And I was trying to catch a bit of a lens flare on those. I don't think those shots really turned out. I mean, most of these shots I wasn't really going for keepers or anything. I just kind of wanted to get a good sense of where this film was at so that if I did want to shoot it a little bit more seriously, I would at least know how to rate it. Once you've reframed your shots and adjusted the white balance, make sure you're in the Develop tab, select all of your images, and open up Negative Lab Pro. I like to do a little bit of extra of a border buffer at 5%. Typically when I use Negative Lab Pro, I like to use either the Frontier or the Noritsu color model because I'm partial to the Noritsu, the way it sort of adds a tinge of green to the shadows. It's maybe not as punchy and contrasty as the Frontier can be. In this case, when I was messing around with these images the other day, I didn't get very good results with either of these settings. I tried a couple with basic, but today I'm going to try just a straight conversion. I just want to see what Negative Lab Pro is going to give us with these images. So I'm going to convert it on color model none. Negative, source, digital camera, pre-saturation. I like to leave that at the default. And in this case, because we have varying exposures, I don't want to check on roll analysis. This is really good if you shot in a controlled lighting scenario and maybe every shot on your roll is into the same lighting conditions, or if your exposure is fairly consistent throughout the roll, then that's when roll analysis works really, really well. But in this case, we're going to leave it off. So let's go ahead and hit convert and see what we get. Okay, right off the bat here, you can see that one of my shots, I didn't even frame it properly, but that's okay. Let's go see what the other ones will look like. Um, definitely still super grainy. Yeah, it's crazy. You can see, so like this shot here of the alleyway, you can see that the sky's got a bit of magenta going on. The shadows are quite faded. It's pretty grainy. But then when I rated it at 400, the greens pop a little bit more. And sky's still got some magenta to it. But then at 200 ISO, this is where... But then at 200 ISO, this is where you can see things really start to clean up. The greens are popping really nice, again, for an expired film. But now the sky's looking a little more neutral, and we haven't even done anything to these images yet. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and hit apply for now. And let's just take a quick look at what we've got. Another one here. So this was rated at 800. This one was rated at 400. That's really... There's definitely something weird going on here. And I think I attribute this magenta cast on the left side of this shot. I attribute it a little bit more to Negative Lab Pro's inversion technique, because it does this thing where it kind of analyzes your image and it interprets the colors as it thinks is best. Ideally, I would want to, like when I set the color model to none, ideally I wouldn't want any kind of interpretation. I would want Negative Lab Pro to just be doing a straight, conversion of like, oh, this pixel is this color, let's make it the opposite, let's make it this color. But it does kind of introduce a bit of a bias, and unfortunately, that's also the process of scanning film. Whatever camera you use, the profile you use, it's going to introduce some kind of a color shift or bias. In this instance, the 200 still looks like the best. However, I'm still kind of surprised how green the 800 ISO shot was. I think that one is a bit of an anomaly, but, it's expired film. It's going to behave in unpredictable ways. This is kind of like one of the most telling images from the entire roll, I think, because we can see quite a bit of grain in the shadows on these, but you do see a very magenta cast up here in the sky that is really not present in the 200 ISO shot. In fact, if anything, the 200 ISO shot, without any corrections, already the sky is looking much more neutral. Trees are punchy and green. That backboard is a little bit too reddish magenta, so I think we're going to try to do something about that. And then over here, this shot shooting straight into the sun, this is the one that I was pretty sure that I had metered it a little bit off. I definitely feel like I underexposed these a little bit, but it's kind of nice to see how well it retains the highlights. The sun's not like, it's a little blown, there's no detail up in there, but we're still seeing pretty wide dynamic range. And then this shot here has to be, despite the grain, again, it's a consumer film. It's an 800 ISO speed film. It was very expired. Despite all that, the colors on this one are popping. The greens look very natural. The reds of the flowers, the orange, everything in this shot is working for me. I think I would maybe just do a slight exposure adjustment to this one, but Let's jump back to the beginning of the roll and see what we can do about the white balance on some of these. I just realized you guys weren't seeing where I was clicking. I think we fixed that now. So let's come back to the first few shots on the roll here, and let's open up Negative Lab Pro. These are on white balance auto neutral. I like to turn this setting to none. Sometimes I play around with them just to kind of see what Negative Lab Pro is suggesting. In this case, I'm going to go with none, and let's try to do a manual white balance somewhere in the shot and see what we get. Ooh, it's a little bit too green for me. There's still a lot of magentas in this image. Let's see where they are. Man, it's tricky to find that balance between. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm gonna start with that for now. I might come back to this one and tweak this a little bit more, but for now, I think that's a pretty good starting point. Okay, so this is our 400 ISO shot. Let's see how this one does with a little white balance. We'll pick the same area. Man, that is green. Okay, that's a bit better. Now you notice how the, oh, okay, that's interesting. Shadows are looking a lot better there. Let's try to fix those whites a little bit. Still a pretty heavy green cast on the edges of this frame, but that's looking pretty nice to me considering. And then we'll come back to this 200 ISO shot. Do the same thing, pick some white off on the corner. It's a little bit tricky sometimes to get it exactly where you want it. Let's try to fix those shadows. Get those blacks a little bit more neutral. Fix those mids. Man, honestly, right there, that to me, that 200 ISO shot is looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and say that this one is doing the best so far. Let's give these a shot with the Noritsu scanner and see how it turns out. Okay. I think we're on a different track here. We're on a different train altogether now. Okay, so this workflow has done something. It's cleaned up a lot of that noise that we had down in the ground. Now we just got to see about if I fix these shadows, is it going to reintroduce something? I think that shadow tone. Not too bad. The shots definitely come out a lot warmer on this pass. The next part of this workflow is a little bit more tedious, but I just want to show how you can continue to edit this image. So the settings inside Negative Lab Pro react a certain way. We can take this pretty decent start a step further once we have a TIFF version of this image. So I'm going to mark it now with a new rating. Now that we have a neutral starting point, or as close to a neutral starting point as we can get, we can do a little bit more editing right here on this shot, and you're going to see that we can take it just a little step further. But just out of curiosity, I want to cool it off just a little bit. All right, to me, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to give that one a 5-star. And just to show you where we were at before with this image. So this was our raw on the left, and this is the edited image on the right. So obviously I cooled it off quite a bit because the backboard is noticeably different. The greens feel a little bit more Fuji reminiscent with these tweaks. I think I might have overdone the white balance a little bit. I'm just going to add a little bit of warmth back to it. Like that. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Considering this film is 25 years expired, I'm pretty okay with that shot. Let's go over these basketball ones really quick. So once again, you can kind of see the side-by-sides. The Negative Lab Pro conversion's pretty good, but I like to do a little bit more editing on my TIFFs because I think it takes you just a little bit further. It's just a little bit easier to get the results that I want. And in this case, I think I'm going to go back and try work on that first shot of the building a little bit more. After seeing how these ones came together, I feel like this shot can be a little bit better. So let's try open it up. That was our scan on the left, and this is our TIFF on the right with a little bit of extra editing. You can definitely make these images pop, and I'm pretty content with the fact that this is 25-year-old film. This is how it's turning out. It's not that bad. I mean, maybe expired film takes a little bit more time to kind of tinker with, to clean up and get good results out of, but for the most part, I'm pretty happy with how this roll turned out. At first, I was a little bit disappointed, and especially when I did the initial conversion, and just seeing how grainy the shots were and just how much of a color cast there was from one shot to another. But, taking the time to tinker with them a little bit, there is still something there. And I think that the way I see it is if you have expired film, don't let it go to waste. Have fun, get out there, shoot it. Who cares if it's not as good as a brand new fresh roll of Kodak Gold or Portra or whatever it is that you have that's not expired? Just because something's expired, it doesn't mean that it's terrible, terrible film. And to me, it's still worth shooting if you can still get an image out of it. And I mean, to me, that's what photography is all about in the end, is just going out there, shooting, having fun. I mean, at the end of the day, people are shooting film, and I think that's awesome. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up. This has been a pretty long video as it is. Thank you for sticking around if you watched this far. I appreciate it. Give this video a thumbs up if you got something out of it, or, give it a thumbs up if you also like shooting expired film. Feel free to drop me a comment below if you've also shot expired film and had results kind of like this. I know sometimes it's hit and miss, but subscribe if you want to see some more videos like this. I'm going to show off that other roll of Fuji Superia 400 that I shot. If I get good results with that, I'm going to share that with you guys too. See ya.